Yo.
What's good?
Finna start this thing? What's up out there?
Yo, what's good?
What it do?
What it be, what it do.
How do we open? Where's that jar?
What it be? What it... Where that jar is.
DJ, do you want to do the honors
What's up out there?
in listener land?
What's good?
We did that.
I say that a lot, and it pisses me off when I hear it.
Really?
Yeah. I just hate the way I sound. That's everyone, but like everyone hates the way I sound.
Accurate.
All right, so starting off with the jar, where we pick a question that one of us has written. The question is, in a zombie apocalypse, what would be your weapon of choice?
An authentic katana. No. Samurai sword.
Is it because you're from the Orient?
Straight up. It's definitely a part of it because I'm Japanese, but also, like, if you had an authentic one, that thing is not going to dull. You'll look like a badass.
There's a video out there of people using a katana in some dojo, and if you don't know how to use it, it doesn't work. Like, they gave a bunch of white belts a katana to slice through, like, a bunch of bamboo poles stacked on top of each other, and they couldn't cut it. Like, it was like 10 people tried, and then like the black belt sensei,
Butter.
whoever, yeah, dude, right through, easy.
What the?
So there's like
Okay, maybe I don't want it.
You're just like blunt force trauma to the zombies.
I'm just like, ting, ting, ting off his skull.
Nah, that's getting all technical though. Katana's good. Everyone would say katana though. Everyone says katana. That's not a bad thing.
Let's take the
great
katana
weapon.
and the AR-15 off the table. Let's say, like, things you have in your home right now.
A katana.
A katana.
Oh, sick.
Brass knuckles.
Machete.
I have a crowbar. I'd use that because it's steel. It's not going to break.
Okay.
True.
All right,
That's
and
true.
then you get one item from
Not your
Shields.
house.
What am I thinking of? Cabela's. You get one item from Cabela's.
If you don't know what that is, it's like a big old hunting store.
Hunting sports.
Okay, one item from there. I would take a really good mountain bike. Like a really good mountain bike. What would you guys take?
Does that include ammo or just the one item?
Ammo. You get ammo. If you get a
Okay.
gun, you get ammo with it.
Okay.
I changed mine. Compound bow
Ooh.
and
One arrow.
10 arrows.
10 arrows.
I don't know. Okay, unlimited arrows.
That's what I'm talking about.
You're all 11.
Unlimited ammo.
That is what I'm talking about. I'd probably take the statue of Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah, here zombies are afraid of that. Because Abraham Lincoln vampire. Oh, it's vampires, sorry.
Well, he did the vampires, so
Yeah.
zombies are easy.
Yeah.
What is that?
You ever seen that movie?
What's it called? Abraham Lincoln Vampire Slayer?
or Vampire Hunter.
Yeah. Came out like 4 years ago.
Sounds. I remember like hearing about it, but I don't think I ever watched it.
I haven't seen it.
It was surprisingly good.
Damn, we should watch it.
Based on a true story, though.
Yep. Abraham Lincoln.
Are you guys going to answer like what you would actually take?
A single pistol with a single shot so I could shoot myself.
Oh my gosh. And I believe that.
And a baseball bat to bash my head in. I would get a... Does Cabela's sell Uzis?
Probably like in the back.
Behind the counter.
If you ask the right guy.
Yeah.
They flip the countertops over. It's underneath.
It's like in the Men in Black where he's like...
Yeah. Oh, a cricket. That's what I take.
Oh.
Oh, Thor's hammer.
Thor's hammer. Shout out Will Smith and Chris
Hemsworth.
Angel. We're a bunch of freaks.
So you want an Uzi?
Yeah, dude. Straight across. All headshots. Not one bullet has missed either.
I feel you.
I'm so good at it.
bro.
Get them all in a line.
Yeah. Just like Call of Duty Zombies.
Ooh, I want that waffler, bro.
Yo, my brother was top 500 in the world for zombies at one point.
I've never been top 500
Shout out.
in the world for
No cap.
anything. So, big up.
I'd also just like to say that my dad is a terrible person.
Oh, okay.
So he went to the hospital today, and they just got back, and my mom was like, she texted, she's like, Dad's going to actually be the one to text and tell you guys what's going on. And so he texted, and he's like, I thought about saying that I would see you in heaven, but just not yet. It's just like an infection. I was like, oh my gosh.
This is just now?
This is just now.
He just
Lord.
texted you.
I've been like keeping up on it all day, seeing what would happen.
Well, congrats for not losing your father, but that's a savage joke.
Yeah, I know.
That's hilarious.
That's something I would do.
I would say sorry, but Sean's been chipper ever since I got here.
It's true. It's my coping mechanism.
Just dad's in the hospital. Yes.
Hi.
I'm stoked.
What the hell's the matter with you, Sean?
All of us. That's why we made this podcast.
Speaking of, my name's Charlie.
I'm DJ.
And I'm Sean.
Jordan's not here. He might show up later.
He's not here with us. He has passed.
Yeah, he died. This is the 3 a.m. podcast.
Anybody got a story to kick it off? Should we ask that? Who has a story?
Should we just... Do you guys have a story? Because that's what we do when you come.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know. How should we decide? Should we like do Rochambeau or something? Let the fates decide. Maybe you should roll a d20.
Oh.
Sean, go get one. I know you strap.
I have one
Hang
too.
on one moment.
Sure, I have mine too.
My metal one.
Give me a second.
Let's all get ours.
Okay. Is it the highest or lowest? Who goes first?
I say the highest has the honor of going first.
All right, so we just had the idea. See who goes first. So we all ran to our separate bags and got our D&D dice that we always keep on us. And we're going to roll. Whoever gets the highest goes first. So let's roll all at once.
Roll our 20-sided die. Let fate decide.
Okay, on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
Oh, I go first.
Oh.
Okay, I got a 13. DJ got a 10. Sean got a 9. All right, boys.
Hit me.
All right, so to start us off, I'm going to tell a story. It's kind of another story about Visalia.
Central Valley.
So if you guys want to know what Visalia, or where me and Jordan grew up, Central California, Visalia, if you want to hear all about what it's like there, you can listen to our 3 p.m. episode. And I'll give you like a background on that. But just really quick, it's the Central Valley of California. So it's flat, it's hot, it's dangerous. There's gangs of all colors. Anyway, so this is another folklore from the foothills near Visalia. So last time I told you guys about the schoolhouse and how the Indians came and killed all the kids and there was ghost children. If you want to hear that once again, listen to our other episode. This is another place that high school kids, it became super popular for them to go visit. So this became like the urban legend of my hometown. Probably one of the biggest ones. If you ask anyone who is my age and older, they'll know about this place. So this is about a place called Peacock Mansion. And Peacock Mansion is this large home. It's a mansion way out in the country. And I believe like a rich family had owned it and it got passed down through a couple generations until it fell into the hands of these 2 brothers. And these 2 brothers, they were both like on the spectrum. And one of them was way worse than the other. So he kind of was his caretaker, right? And they had, the legend goes, they started to lose their mind. And one of them, especially one of them taking care of the other, they had no one else to help them. So they started one of them just took all the money and they started raising peacocks. And they'd show up into farmer's market in Visalia. They'd have to come in from the countryside, and they'd show up at the farmer's market and just try to sell weird stuff. Right?
Weird stuff.
I think like peacock related things like feathers and art.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. So, it just kind of declined and got weirder and weirder until one time they stopped showing up at the farmer's market and no one had heard from them. And it got to the point where they were like, we need to go check on them. So they sent people out there. Turns out they don't know who killed who first, but they showed up to the house and both the brothers are dead. And all the peacocks are strangled.
Damn.
So this family owned this land. There's no one that they gave the land to. There's no one that they gave the house to. So the whole estate just goes to the state or the city. And so no one owns this land. It's immediately, they just put like a foreclosed thing on the front door, right? And then they walk away. And so after a while, word gets out. You can go to this house and you can look in the windows and you can like see their unopened mail. You can see like the last meal they had on the table. There's food in the fridge because they just left this house. So super quick, high school kids are like, let's go to this place.
When was this?
I'm going to say late 90s.
Okay.
So let me explain like what it's like to get out there. So last time I explained how hard it is to get to the schoolhouse. You have to go down this road called El Rio Road, which is essentially a one-lane thing in between two orchards near a river with a ton of meth heads and gangs and white supremacists running around at night. Then you have to go through that. Then you have to go like 30 minutes past there till you get to the schoolhouse. Once you get to the schoolhouse, you have to turn down this dirt path through a junkyard. And it's like half a mile through this junkyard. Then once you get past the junkyard, you get to this river. And there is a bridge going over the river. And at the bottom of this hill, so that comes to the bottom of this hill. At the top of this hill is Peacock Mansion.
So where the hills have eyes.
Dude, it is iconically a terrifying place. Like, you couldn't make it better. So word gets out, and this becomes super popular with the high school kids. Like, everyone goes out there, right? They take their friends. And it starts getting to the point where people start breaking in. They start taking things from Peacock Mansion. All of a sudden, there's a ton of graffiti on the walls. A ton of, as Kevin would put it, Satan's star. Things like that. And so this was super popular to do when my older sister was in high school. And this is the same sister who was babysitting the two guys who were, I found out later, not on mushrooms, but on acid, which in my opinion is a lot worse. In my opinion. So this is like around the same time that she's going to the Peacock Mansion. So a group of girls decide to go out to Peacock Mansion. I think there's 4 girls in the car. And they decide to drive out. And on the way, it honestly takes like 30, 40 minutes to get out there from Visalia. So on the way, they're listening to the radio, they're laughing, they're chatting. It gets to the dirt road. It gets to El Rio. It starts getting a little creepier. It starts to sprinkle. It's getting dark. The music stops. They stop talking until finally they pull up to the front of the bridge that goes right over the empty ditch, which is sometimes a river. And they park the car. And now it's quiet. And all of them are silently looking up at Peacock Mansion. So before, they were all brave. And now they're sitting there. No one's wanting to say it, but no one wants to get out of the car. So as they're sitting there, the rain's coming down. The driver says, do we want to do this? Should we turn around? And everyone in the back's like, yeah, I'm not getting out. And the road's so narrow, you can't turn around. You have to like back out, right? Dang. So as the driver turns on the car, the headlights illuminate the empty ditch. and they all see this flash go across the headlights. And a woman runs up to the window and starts banging on the driver window. And all the girls scream. And the lady who knocked on the window is holding a baby in her arms. And her eyes are wide and she's frantic. All of the girls scream. They're terrified. And she says, please, please help me. And her face is white. And she looks genuinely terrified. And she's shaking her baby and looking over her shoulder. Please help me. Let me in the car. I need to get away. He's coming. And they're all confused and terrified. So like, what? They're trying to make sense of what's happening. And she's banging on the window. Please let me in. He's coming. I need you to take me away. He's coming. And all the girls are like in the back are, do not open your door. Because she's saying, open your door. Let me in. Let me in. And the girls in the back are like, no, just go. As she's shaking the baby and looking over her shoulder, she's saying, please, he's coming. He was right behind me. If you don't let me, just take my baby. Get him away. And she's shaking the baby harder and harder. And the driver's like, guys, I don't know what to do. Maybe we should help her out. Maybe we can help her out. And this is before cell phones. So she's shaking the baby and watching him. And she starts to roll down her window. And as she rolls down her window, the blanket comes undone. And as soon as there's like 2 inches crack in the window, she drops the empty blanket and lunges into the window.
No.
And the girls all scream. She turns on the car, throws it into reverse, and luckily she backs up without hitting any of the junkyard, all the cars around, until they get to a place where they can turn around, and they take off. And they just see the lady in her headlights as they're driving back with no baby in a blanket just staring at them.
In the rear view mirror.
Well, they're backing up, so
they're
the
backing
people in the back are looking at her in the headlights in the rain, and she's just standing there like just heaving in the rain. And so that story, because that happened when my sister was in high school, everyone stopped going. They were like, hell no. And it got to a point where it was so dangerous to go out there. It was attracting so many people. Like, animal sacrifices were being done in the house. There was red paint everywhere and blood everywhere, that the city decided to condemn it. And right when I got to high school, they demolished it. So I had grown up hearing about Peacock Mansion because my sister was during the heyday when those girls were attacked.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to go out there. So I took
before they actually demolished it.
It was like a year after they demolished it.
Okay.
So I go out there, I follow her instructions, I go through the path, I go through the junkyard, which was terrifying. Like,
you're not even there yet.
It's a movie set, like, of a scary movie. That's how terrifying it is.
Hold up. Are you with people?
Oh yeah, I take friends all the time.
Okay,
I would not go out there by myself.
Well, just for the record.
Yeah. No. I would take my friends out there. And the last time I took my friends out there, we come out of the graveyard, we go down the path, we get to the river, the ditch and the bridge, and there's the gate, and you can see up the hill, you can see the foundation where the house used to be. And on the gate is one peacock feather.
What the?
So my friend jumped out of the car and allegedly grabbed the peacock feather, and I still have it. And that's the story of Peacock Mansion.
Where's the feather?
It's in storage in Visalia.
Good.
That's why your house was haunted growing up.
Dude, oh my gosh. It might be, dog.
Question.
Yeah.
Do they have any kind of explanation for that? The woman, like, did they ever think maybe it was like a meth head or?
So I'll start with the most probable thing. It's a meth head who is trying to, like, harm or rob these 4 girls, which is weird.
Probably.
And in itself terrifying. But also, if you think about it, have you ever heard of La Llorona?
Yeah.
It's a white woman who travels near rivers a lot of the times looking for her baby. So I'm not saying it was her, but it's just really weird, all the parallels. Right?
True. So it's one of the two and both are terrifying. So
yeah. So take your pick. Oh, dude, That's a good question. Which one would you take? Would you take
meth head?
Dude, I don't know.
Dude,
bro.
I could take a meth head. If it's some like ghost La Llorona, I'd probably still like. I could take that. I don't know what that is, but like.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'd rather take like a supernatural or like a real person, because both are terrifying.
My uncle was on the SWAT team growing up in Hawaii, and Hawaii used to be the meth capital of the world at one point. And he was like a high-ranking officer or captain at that time.
Dang.
So there were a hella drug busts during his time in the SWAT team. There was one time I remember coming home from school, and the highway we would take, getting to school, driving with traffic, 20-25 minutes.
Was your school like on the other side of the island or what?
Kind of, yeah. Yeah, it was on the other side of the island a little bit. The highway we would take to go to and from school past this valley, and in the valley there are housing. And I remember seeing him and a bunch of other SWAT lying down on the road looking into the valley with snipers.
Oh my god.
Just wild.
Wait, you drove by that, or you just...
Yeah, I drove by that. It was like it was a 4-lane road, 2 for each side. They closed off 1 lane, so traffic got pretty slow. So everything was throttled into that 1 lane. And when we passed by, we got to see what was going on.
Oi, uncle.
And I was like, oh, shoot. Yeah. But, yeah, he told me a story of how they came in contact with a meth head who was holding this person hostage in the middle of a intersection.
Oh my!
So
gosh.
they closed off the streets. They had snipers. Everybody was armed. I think the meth head had a gun or a knife. The meth head was armed, but they shot him
while he's like holding the hostage.
While he was holding the hostage. At some point they shot him, but they shot him in the head, and the dude survived.
Oh,
what?
They got some type of X-ray. It didn't just show his skull, but like his brain as well.
The tissue and stuff.
Yeah, and when the results came back, there were just holes in his head from
just chunks taken out.
Well, not from the bullet, but from meth.
Oh,
just eating away at his body.
That's wild.
That's crazy.
So, with that said, I'd probably still take the meth head.
Dude, reminds me of a story. I gotta follow it.
Go ahead.
So I have a buddy who I met. His name was Zion, and I met him in Australia. This kid is 6'7" plus. Dude, he's pushing 7 feet tall, 300 pounds. I used to say he legit ducked when he came into the doors. He looked like a fridge. That's how big. His head was a boulder. Do you know what I mean? Homie was huge. He's a Maori dude. So he's from New Zealand, and his whole family is from New Zealand, and they're all from Whangarei, which is up north. And that's a tribe in New Zealand. So the Maoris have 7 families.
Mm-hmm.
And the one he's from, they're known for being the biggest and the most vicious and like the most recent to cannibalism. Like they gave it up unwillingly, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't quote me on any of that, but so he's this massive dude. And his uncle was a cop in New Zealand, and his uncle told him this story. One time they answered a domestic disturbance call in the middle of the night. And the dispatcher said, there's an old woman like causing a scene. She's scaring some people. And they're like, huh? And like, can you describe her? They're like, she's tiny. She's she's very small and she's like 80 years old. But she's causing enough of a scene. She's scaring a lot of people. This is in the middle of the night. He's like, okay. So this is his uncle. He said his uncle's like as big as him, if not bigger. His uncle shows up to this scene, and there's this tiny, frail, wizened old lady in the middle of the street. And he said when he saw her, chills, because she was like, ah, like screaming, screeching, and howling. And she was like contorting, and her fingers were all like making weird things, and her arms are behind her, and she's like making all these weird movements.
Was she naked though?
He didn't say. I like to personally think no. But for you listeners, yes, she was. So her titty flapping. I'm sorry. No, she was close. She's in a nightie, a muumuu, but she's terrified. She's making all these noise. So they go up to her, and she's heaving, and she's like looking side-eyed at them, like growling and stuff. And they're like, "Ma'am, you need to go inside." And she like growls at them. And so they're like scared.
Growl back, dude.
Yeah. He's like hits a Pukana real quick, and she laughs.
Just does the haka, and then she runs.
Show your dominance.
No, but so they're like, "Ma'am, you need to go inside. Like, you need to calm down. You need to calm down." And she just is growling and hissing. And he walks up and tries to restrain her, and this old lady lifts him up onto the cop car, up and over the cop car, and through him. And his partner saw that and was like, "Nope." And they called like 15 cops, and they all came and tackled her. Whoa. And she's like, "Ah!" And she did not go down easy. They strapped her in, got her the thing, and to the point where she passes out. And then in the morning, they take her to the station, put her in the cell, and she wakes up and she's like, "What happened? What's going on?"
What?
And they're like, "Ma'am, do you remember anything from last night?" She's like, "No, where am I? Why am I here?" And that's the story.
That's where you run up to her like you're gonna tackle her again, and then beast mode activates. Yo, get that lady on the All Blacks, bro. 15
They're
cops
like,
to take
"Ma'am,
her down.
Have you ever thought of a career in footy?" No, but it's just crazy. Like, either drugs or spirits were in her, gave her extra strength,
or both.
Lifted this dude off the ground onto the car.
That's wild, dude. Old people. Just scary.
Dude, old people and like little kids. For some reason.
It's because they're unseeming. Like they're not supposed to be.
My initial thought was kind of like, it's because they're both like closer to the beginning and the end. So like maybe the veil gets a little thinner. I don't know.
Maybe. Seeing that I rolled a 10, that puts me next. This story is a little change of pace. It's a story that took place in October of 1962, which, Sean, you're a history buff.
October of 1962.
Yeah.
Halloween happened that month.
Why Halloween every year? Everybody's birthday this year. October of 1962, the Cuban Missile Crisis.
It's also 7 years before the moon landing. So,
alleged.
Another podcast. Stanley Kubrick, look it up. We're all in a simulation.
So, October 1962, Cuban Missile Crisis. What do you know about the Cuban Missile Crisis?
I saw a movie with Kevin Costner.
It has been a while since I've heard anything about it, but I wrote a paper on it when I was in 7th grade.
Sean was homeschooled.
Any chance to bring up Sean being homeschooled? I'm for.
I was also vaccinated.
Oh.
Okay, I'm going to go out and say it. School me. I don't know.
I don't know either. But the Cuban Missile Crisis was going on. I don't know too much about it besides that it was a big deal and it was almost World War III. The US and Russia were, I guess, allegedly conducting nuclear tests. The US wanted to monitor that. And they had an approximation of where Russia was conducting these tests. And it was towards the northwest hemisphere of Russia. And what they would do is they would send pilots to the North Pole. Because
Is this Russia would send pilots?
No, the US.
Okay.
Would send pilots to the North Pole because the wind would carry the radioactive dust towards that direction.
Mm-hmm.
That's one. Two, going into the North Pole turns off all radio signals, and you can basically fly under the radar. It's dangerous because you have no contact with anybody.
So you can't communicate out and no one can communicate in?
Correct. And you
Yikes.
can't use your instruments. So they specially trained these pilots to learn how to navigate like the old school way.
Like stars and
using
stuff?
the stars. Yes. So in this one particular story, Charles Maltzby was the pilot set to go collect these radioactive samples for the US to bring back, or to collect these radioactive samples to bring back for the US. When flying into the North Pole region, his trip was supposed to take about 8 hours. For most of that time, he would not have contact with anybody.
That's wild.
Yeah. Just being out there by yourself.
That's like arduous.
Mm-hmm. So he goes. Unfortunately, Aurora Borealis, the northern lights, blocked his vision from the stars, so he got lost. And he had no idea where he was, which way he should fly, because if he flew into Russian airspace,
Yeah.
that very well could have triggered the war, or a war. So he just flew. He didn't know where. he just flew. After some time of flying blind, he started hearing some static on his radio, and he heard a voice tell him to turn 10 degrees to the left.
So just a random voice comes through?
Just a random voice saying, turn 10 degrees to the left.
Turn 10 degrees left.
Exactly.
I don't know if I'm following that.
But like, what's your option?
He decides to follow. He has a gut feeling that he should follow that. He feels good about it. So he turns. And then the voice disappears. So he's flying blind again. He turns his plane, and then that's it. So he just keeps flying straight, I guess. Not too long after, he hears a static again, and another voice comes and says, turn 30 degrees to the right. He doesn't feel good about this one, so he keeps flying straight, and that one turns off, and he doesn't hear it again. This happens 2 more times. The next one, so the third time, sounds like the first and says, all right, turn 15 more degrees to the left. And he does. And the final time, the fourth voice, second voice.
So there's 2 distinct voices.
Yeah, 2 voices. The fourth time the radio comes on, it's the second voice. It says, turn 35 to the right. He doesn't listen. He trusts the first voice.
Damn.
And he flies. In the distance, he sees 2 planes flying at him. And he hears Russian music start playing from his radio.
Oh, I was like, what? Just like everywhere around him?
And he sees these 2 planes. As they get closer, he just flies straight. As they get closer, they fly past him. And he sees them. He watches them. Right when they pass him, they're turning around.
Oh, gosh.
And then they fly up right next to him. And they radio in. And it's the US.
Oh,
and they guide him back home. And that's the story of Charles Maltby. It's a true story. You could look it up online. But that was in the middle of the Cuban Missile Crisis. And if Russia confirmed that that was the U.S.,
that would have been World War III.
It could have been. They were all conducting nuclear tests for war. So
That's intense.
Dude, you don't have more on the voices? I want to know so bad.
that and the music got me, dude. That's so creepy. And it's crazy because being in that situation, so remote, there's no one that can help you.
Mm-hmm.
And you hear some voice. Dude.
Talk about trusting your gut feeling. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's so weird. None of us, not a lot of people know about that, but so much rode on that. If you would have chose the second voice, you know, we could be speaking Russian, comrade. Do you know what I mean?
Stars and stripes, hammers and sickles.
We'd all be singing. Dude, that's wild. I like that.
Yeah.
That time period is peak spy time.
True.
Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, when I think about it, so like romantically almost, where it's like I romanticize it.
Yeah.
I wish I was a part of it. There was things like, did you ever hear those stories where they found Russian microphones in the U.S. Embassy because they weighed all of their printers, and one of the printers was like 0.00001 grams heavier, and they took it apart and they saw it was scanning everything they were like writing and like transmitting it. So everything they printed through that printer was like being sent back to Russia. There's just like all that little stuff is so cool to me.
That's so crazy.
That's wild.
I know it's just a movie, but have you seen A Man from U.N.C.L.E.?
Oh,
Dude,
great. I love
so
it.
good.
I love that movie.
The music is so good too.
Mm-hmm. And just to think about that era, like it's basically it's an American spy and a Russian spy, and at the time we're enemies. You know, both countries are enemies, but they have to work together towards something that they both need. But throughout the whole movie, like they'll find each other's like microphones in their hotel room and stuff, just bugging each other. But that's wild, dude.
Dude, I have a really short story that reminds me a little bit of like a point I'm wanting to make, is like when you see something or experience something and you can't explain it, or like this thing you just told us about Charles Mosby or whatever his name was, Charles Baracus. I don't know.
Charles Barkley.
You just can't explain it, right? It's
crazy. Yeah.
I had a cousin who was hiking with like several people from his church when he was young. He's like 12. And his leader, the guy who was chaperoning the trip, super well respected guy in the community. So when my cousin told me this story, everyone in the room was like, wait, he was there? And he was like, yeah. And they were like, oh, then I 100% believe this. So they're hiking and they get to the coast at night, the coast of Oregon. And he said they all sat down at this table and they're just looking out over the water. And this is the middle of nowhere. And as they're staring out in the middle of the sea, he said an aircraft, a flying object, comes from the right. And it's perfectly shaped like a saucer with blue lights all around the rim. He said it came out silently into the middle of their vision over the middle of the ocean. And they all just sat there in silence and stared at this thing. And then it went and took off faster than anything can move. And they all saw this. There was like 7 of them, including like the well-respected guy. So I asked him, I was like, what do you think that was? Is that the government? Is that
Aliens?
Or did you see an alien? He's like, I have no idea. And you don't get answers, dude. It's crazy.
I have a couple friends actually who last summer they were all hanging out, and these 2 girls, they live in an apartment complex behind me, so we're frequently hanging out with them. They're talking to me about how last summer they're hanging out with a couple friends just about a block away from us, hanging out in this grassy area. outside of their friend's apartment complex, and it's nighttime, and across the street, right above this big tree, they see a bunch of orbs of light. That's how they described it. Just orbs of light floating above the tree. Made no noise. Like, they would have known if it was a drone or something like that, but just silent. And it just hung above the tree. It was maybe about, 40 feet off the ground. And that lasted a few minutes. And then it flew off super fast and just disappeared. But they had no idea what it was. It's like, these things happen and you have no answers, no explanation.
That's frustrating. No answers, no explanation.
It's like, how are you supposed to tell people? Like, me telling it is frustrating right now.
Because, yeah, it's like, how do you believe that? But you saw it,
Mm-hmm.
Were either of you guys in Utah already? It was a couple years ago when like a satellite or some space trash like came into the atmosphere, and it was like coming down across the sky. And
I don't think so.
It looked crazy.
That sounds familiar, actually.
It was like, so I was like playing basketball outside with my brother Tom, and we see it going across the sky, and it was like in several chunks, just like streaking across the sky and light with like light. There were like people around us like, oh, look at the fireworks. I'm like, that's not fireworks. You're stupid.
Have you seen fireworks?
But we're like trying to figure out what it was. We didn't find out till the next day. It was quote unquote a satellite or a space trash, allegedly. But it was really weird looking at it, and that was the explanation that came to light.
That's crazy.
Well, I rolled a 9, so I'm going to tell a story real quick.
Do your thing.
So I heard this story today, actually. Yes. I was asking one of my friends at work. He's like, he sat down on his break and was like, bro, you got any scary stories about like you or a friend? And he's like, yeah, I have one for me. I was like, ooh, this is going to be good. And I was like, I pulled up a chair right next to him. I was like, here, tell me what it is. And so he says, well, you know what a Ouija board is, right? And I was like, do I know what a Ouija board is?
What's that?
And to kind of preface this, when
it's almost like insulting. It's like, yes, you dick. I'm an American person.
He's saying like in high school, it was him and a bunch of friends. They bought like a legitimate Ouija board from like a pawn shop or something. It wasn't like one of those Target ones. And they're playing down in the basement.
Oh gosh.
Of course. His curfew at the time was 11 o'clock. So they're playing with this Ouija board, just messing around. Gets to the time where he's got to leave, and he's like, okay, I got to go. And he gets up and he leaves. And of course, one of the rules of the Ouija board is you have to say goodbye. And at that point, he said he gets home. His friend calls him and he's like, bro, the Ouija board said to come back. And he's like, no, that's not real. And
I just legit got chills.
Dude, yeah, I'm getting chills telling this story right now. And at this point, he looks at me, he's like, I don't know if I believe in any of this stuff. It could have been complete coincidence. I was like, what happened? He said, the next day, I wake up and go about, like, start doing stuff, and then I pass out. And, like, I can't breathe. His parents take him to the hospital, and, like, the doctors come in, and they, like, jab him in the side of his, like, torso.
Like through his ribs or what?
Like through his ribs, because 90% of his lungs were, like, compressed, and he couldn't breathe.
They collapsed?
Like, they weren't collapsed, but it was, like, compressed is what he said. So they, like, poked a hole through his ribs so he could breathe.
Damn, he's breathing out that side straw?
Yeah. And then, like, ultimately he gets better. About a week later, his friend that told him that the Ouija board said to come back said, we didn't want to tell you, but after that it said, watch out. And he was like, I don't know if I believe that. It could have been just complete coincidence. I don't know what caused that, but that's what happened. And he was like, that's freaking gnarly, bro. That's wild.
In those situations, it's hard not to connect the dots.
It's true. It could be coincidence.
Because I feel like as it's human nature to want to make sense of things and to understand.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So when those are the pieces that you're given and there's nothing else, it's like,
well, that makes sense.
yeah, this makes sense, but
Isn't that like Schrodinger's law or something? It's like the most simple answer is usually the right one or something like that.
I don't know if that's true.
But you got to like think like what sparked the don't let the black cat cross your path, you know? Someone probably had a black cat cross his path and then something terrible happened. You know what I mean? And then you connect the dots. Have you guys ever played with a Ouija board?
I have not. I know you have, though.
So I have I have once when I was like 12. But this one was glow in the dark and it was like trash, and the whole time I was just scaring my friend. So we like lit candles in his bathroom because it was like the only room in the house that didn't have 20 windows. So
just you two.
Yeah. So it was pitch black. And we set this thing up and he starts asking questions. And I'm just going around and I'm spelling names and I'm spelling die and stuff. And he is freaking out, dog. He is scared. And I was like, hey, I got to go. And he's like, you can't leave, dude. You can't. I remember he asked like if anyone was there and I spelled the word Dan. And he said like, what are you doing? And I spelled the word die. And he was tripping. Fast forward 20 years. I decided I would never play with one, but I have a friend who you guys all know who, for some sick, gross reason, desperately wants to play with the Ouija board. It's Kevin.
Not Kevin from last episode. Kevin from last episode.
Kevin from last episode.
Kevin from last episode.
Damn.
Yeah.
Or 2 episodes ago. Either or.
Either way.
Goodness.
Yeah, so he bought one. We bought like 200 candles. We lit them all. We set up a table in the middle of the room. And I was like, hey, I was like, I won't help you, but I'll film it. And he's like, okay. And he sets it all up and he looks at me. He's like, do you know what to do? Or he goes, do you know what to do? Just kidding. Sorry, Kevin. And I was like, no. And I was like, just wing it. Like, go with whatever feels right. So he does all this stuff. He starts specifically calling out people like, yo, if you're here, do this. He starts like taunting them. He leaves the planchette on the board and walks away. Then he like doesn't clear. Anyway, he does all this stuff. And then I was like, maybe we should look up like how you should do this. So we Google it and start reading. There's a list of like 20 things you should never do with the Ouija board. He broke every one. And I was like, Kevin, you're gonna die, dude. You broke every rule.
In our apartment.
Yeah. This is also when Jordan walked out of his room and he just walked into this scene. 200 candles. I think we drew stuff like on the ground. And then he was just like, what the hell is going on?
Didn't you guys walk into a basement of an abandoned building and have video of finding a Ouija board broken?
Oh.
No. Wrong. It was it was the basement of an abandoned jail.
Was it a jail or a mental facility?
It was a basement of an abandoned mental facility for criminally insane people.
Why are all the asylums abandoned?
Actually, dude, this is pulling out of my butt, so don't quote me on this. But during the Nixon era, a ton of mental facilities were closed. And so, like, I heard about that on another podcast, but they talk about how they just started turning people away, turning people out. And these are like schizophrenic, crazy people.
Whoa.
So it could be a part of that. But there is this abandoned mental institution halfway between Provo and Springville, Utah. And you can't, it's kind of hard to see. It's like not on the main road. You have to like go up this hill, but you can go into it. And we went into it and we explored it. And it was like the bottom levels, the basements were all flooded. There was one dark room where someone had burnt something and there was just blood all up the wall, and then a blood trail out the wall up the stairs. It was crazy.
And you followed that, of
Yeah,
course.
but it stopped eventually. Like, we couldn't find the droplets.
It's above you. Did you look above you?
Just some ghoul hanging
What's
from
wrong?
the ceiling.
And y'all went at night too.
Well, yeah, of
But
course.
we get to this like main room that kind of looked like the facility, and on this table is a torn in half Ouija board. And so my thought is like, when I had my experience with the Ouija board and the voice inside of me told me to get rid of it and all other evil in my life, if you want to listen to that story, I think it's like number 1 or 2. When I saw the board, I just felt like inside of me, someone had a terrible experience with this board and they destroyed it and like got rid of it. I don't know.
And you have a video of that, don't you?
I don't know.
I'd have to look. I do. It's on one of my hard drives.
Bro, I was going to touch it. I was like...
Yeah, I heard somebody was going to touch it. That was you?
Did I grab you and pull
Yeah,
you
that was
away?
me.
Of course.
I was going to, what are the odds somebody to touch it?
Hell
Get
no.
it out. Yeah, if we find that video, we got to put that up for the
Sorry,
people.
I don't necessarily believe in Ouija boards, but I do believe in devices or ceremonies or rituals to attract spirits.
And we talked about that previously. Like, inanimate objects, like, they can't act for themselves until someone with a conscience and can make decisions like us
Like, puts power into it.
puts power into it, you know? Like, right now, I'm moving this mason jar. So, I am somewhat confident that people can perform rituals, like you were saying, to call down some type of power, which can then put itself on these objects, such as a Ouija board.
Yeah.
That's my opinion, but
We kind of said it last time, like, if you're like us and you love scary stories, you've always loved scary movies, things like that, just be careful on the paths you go down. Because there was points in my life where I was like thirsting after scary things. And you kind of notice a shadow and it grows. So if you're like us and you find yourself just constantly taking in negative, dark things, like I said last time, just check yourself, clear the air, put some light into that dark, you know what I mean?
Some would say check yourself before you wreck yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Abraham Lincoln, the vampire slayer, said that.
And that man was a Albert Einstein.
Alberto Einstein.
Einstein, yo. Einstein.
Gesaffelstein.
Cool.
Hey, thanks for listening. If you have any scary stories that you'd like us to share, send them to 3ampodcaststories@gmail.com, and we may be able to read those on here.
Thanks, guys. We appreciate it.